रखा था भाई, खाया क्यों नहीं? कैरी रखी थी, चावल रखे थे।
visitors and friends. As Anil mentioned, I have been to the center several times, and I will also be happy to come again. I don't have to be invited to a particular location. In fact, I have a little time today, but I have an appointment with the governor at 12:15, and I have to do several things before. So I certainly will promise you to come back again and again to talk about various things, and anytime since you are into matter, it's very easy. I go all the way to different places to speak, but speaking here will not be easy. So don't try to get all the answers today. So I'll take a blank check to come back again. In fact, this seminar is a little bit an overreaching by the center, because normally seminars are dealt with at the postgraduate level. But I think this is a very good sign. I have been saying that the problem with Indian education, particularly Kerala education, is that we think that research is something we do at the very end of your education cycle. We never think in terms of research at the junior level. But every levels in the world, particularly the developed countries of the world, research starts at school level. I remember taking my son to a school in New York many years ago. He was only 9 years old, he's a professor himself now. And the principal asked me how much research he has done. So I thought he was making a mistake. She thought I was asking me how much research I had done. So I said, he's only 9 years old. He has not done any research, she said. And she said, it is high time he did. That's what we do at primary level. So this has been a point that I've been making at various university institutions. That we should start not just gathering knowledge, but generating knowledge at a very early level. And I think the university is doing exactly that. That is, they are taking you to an atmosphere of research and education and erudition, where postgraduate students mill around. But for you, this is an opportunity which has come early. And my suggestion is that you must pick up this point and try and take up various issues, not simply from the textbook, but from your own research. And so I really welcome this initiative of getting at the graduate level itself a certain amount of interaction and a certain amount of research. So I hope you will use this opportunity for that, not simply to take down whatever you have been told, but to look at the issues with an inquisitive and questioning mind. Like for example, when I saw the title, I immediately thought, why this title? What's it called? Way towards framework. India's rising. India's rise as a global power. Why? You must immediately ask a question. Has India not been a global power so far? So what is this emergence? Since I joined the Foreign Service and went to the United Nations, people keep on saying India is an emerging power. From where? India has been a great power for centuries. Do you know how America was discovered? Does anybody know? How was America discovered? From one of the students. Who discovered it? Amerigo Vespucci or Vasco da Gama or whoever. But what was, not Vasco da Gama, why he went to look for, he did not go to look for United States. He was looking for India. So if it was not a great power, why should he go all the way to search for India? And thank God, we don't regret that America was invented in the process. I used to tell the Americans, you are here because of us, but we we don't regret the fact that you were discovered because of us. So India's great power status is not something we are aspiring to. We are a great power and we are aware of it. I'm not talking about Pushpa Viman, Ravana's atom bombs and things like that. I'm not referring to that. But I'm referring to a history and also referring to the features of a global power. Why is Japan not a global power? Have you ever thought of it? It's one of the richest countries in the world, industrialized nation. But would anybody say it's a global power? They were involved in the Second World War. By the stroke of a pen, they lost the war, or rather the use of the nuclear bomb. Otherwise, we would have all been speaking Japanese. Imagine the kind of importance that Japan had at that time. And it may not have lost the Second World War. But still, nobody talks in terms of Japan as a global power. Because first thing that you need is territory. You need land. You cannot have an island with a coconut and become a great power by introducing some technological marvels. You need a huge land mass. You need a huge population. And you must have a culture which is diverse. You must have the resilience of centuries of history. How a country has fared against external incursions, external domination, and how you fought the fight for freedom. How India was the first major country in the world which got independence without shedding a drop of blood. So if you look at that way, emergence of India as a global power doesn't attract me. What has been happening over the years is that we were always on top of the world depending on the circumstances in which we were in. In 1970, there was a global expo in Japan, in Osaka. I was there. In the Indian pavilion, there was not even a computer. Even the manager did not have a computer. It was writing, 1970. Every other pavilion was full of electronic marvels. You know what we had in our pavilion? Just a white tiger and some beautiful Indian ladies clad in saris serving Darjeeling tea. That was all that we had in the pavilion. But you should have seen the line of people in front of the Indian pavilion. They didn't come to find technology there. They know that India has no great technology in that time. So there is something that attracts mankind towards India and the Indian civilization. So my point is, we are not aspiring to be a global power. You can dispute this fact, I am ready to discuss it. We have always been a global power, and the world has been trying to restrain you into your regional power. This is what they have been trying. Every system, what did UK do to India? It tried to restrain India in as many ways as possible once they knew that they were leaving. They got India divided, they got Pakistan created, they got a commitment for us to do a plebiscite in Kashmir. So every step that they did after they decided to leave was to ensure that India does not remain a global power, it must be reduced in size. And that is the struggle we are talking about. So we are not talking about rise as a global power, but the struggle to retain remain as a global power in the world. That is the stage that we are doing. We can debate this. Because now what they are doing is, the world is setting standards. They are saying that a global power means you must have nuclear weapons. You must have the capacity to destroy the world 55 times over. You must have alliances around the world. Are these all necessary for a global power? If our influence was such globally that somebody went to search for India and found the Americas. All the greatest wealth of Europe was all spent on buying our spices and herbs from Malabar. What more influence do you want? At that time your power does not depend on nuclear power. It depends on your influence. How are you known? One Mahatma Gandhi is enough to have a global power, I would say. With one piece of paper, what did he have, Mahatma Gandhi? One piece of power paper was his newspaper. How many people read it? How did he create that revolution? People often say, suppose Mahatma Gandhi had Twitter and Facebook, what would have happened to the world? Well, many things would have happened to the world, but it happened to the world without Twitter and Facebook. Because what he did, what he said was so significant to the world. Or one Swami Vivekananda is enough to show the world that India is a global power. In 11 minutes, he explained what India's wealth is, what India's ancestry is, what India's religion is. We are still struggling with Hindutva, whether India should be Hindu or not Hindu. That was not the question. Hinduism is a civilization. India is the home of the oldest civilization in the world which has not suffered. Nobody has taken away what happened to the Greek Revolution and the Egyptian culture, etc. It has not happened to India. Maybe China and India are the only ones who have retained our spiritual heritage all these years. So if you think in terms of what alliances you are in, if you think in terms of whether you have ChatGPT, GPT, if you set such standards, you can say India is rising. We are slowly. That's not it. We were much beyond ChatGPT. If I would say abolish ChatGPT because that is destroying the creative abilities of mankind. I'm glad that somebody is now devising another app which will kill ChatGPT. Do you know that? Now when you write an essay from ChatGPT, if I started doing it and submit it, it can be checked whether it is yours or ChatGPT's. Another app has already come. So we are very impressed that ChatGPT could not beat the UPSC examination. Did you hear that? I believe many of you are interested in civil service examination. The only entrance examination that ChatGPT lost to was the UPSC civil service examination. Now they are trying to develop it so that they can beat the UPSC. So that is where they are and that is where we are. We have a UPSC examination which can beat ChatGPT. So what we need to understand is that India is being put in various circles and squares to restrain India from becoming a global power. This is really the question. From 1947 to or 1945, we were already signatories to the UN Charter. In 1962, imagine the influence that India had in the world. Imagine what Pandit Nehru meant to the world, particularly the so-called third world. How many, when the United Nations was formed in 1945, there were only 52 states. Now there are 193 states. Where will they come from? Who decolonized these countries? Whose ideas encouraged them to fight against the colonialism and become independent and be part of the non-aligned movement? So do you need more global power than that? So we have to think in terms of this. We oppose the nuclear power, but we have tried to avoid it. Because we did not think that nuclear power was necessary to retain the global power of India. But why did we take that crucial decision? Why did India decide on this nuclear test? Can anybody tell me? Were we threatened by nuclear weapons? Why did we take that decision? Not in 1998. We took that decision in 1974. Mrs. Gandhi took that decision. Right? But what was the threat for her? There was no threat. But we realized that if you want to be a permanent member of the Security Council, you have to be a nuclear power. There is no other permanent member who does not have a nuclear capacity. I'm not saying that we will become permanent member just because we have nuclear powers. So, in other words, the world pushed you to certain positions. But at the same time, they push you like that, and at the same time, they restrain you in so many other ways. We all are very great pride. We have great pride in nuclear treaty that we signed with the United States. All of us were really excited that we have come close to the US. US has recognized our technical capability. We began to be called technically advanced nation. But what did they do after that? You have signed it. You have complied with many of the NPT provisions. But did they make you a member of the nuclear suppliers group? Though you have fulfilled all the criteria. They said now that you are like a nuclear weapon state because you have, subscribed to many of the principles of the NPT. But when we said that we are ready to use the nuclear suppliers group because we are ready to also comply with the regulations of nuclear supply to the world, they said no, you have not signed the NPT. So this whole story of India's emergence, as it were, is created by the world to restrain you, to restrict you, to keep you as a second level power. And therefore we have started attributing various things. You have to do this to become a global power. When somebody says you are a global power, you are very happy. I'm not happy at all. I remember a very interesting conversation. Mr. Jaswant Singh, he was our foreign minister, and Stroke Talbot, I don't know if you know these names. Those were the two who discussed over 2 years from our nuclear test of 1998 to President Clinton's visit to India, the two most difficult years in India-US relations. I was in Washington those years, and I participated in these talks, so I'm not giving any theoretical position. At every point of the discussion, what the Americans tried to do is to restrain us. They knew that we had reached the nuclear threshold and we had the nuclear capacity. But that is what they could not afford to accept. And so they put you benchmarks. Will you sign the CTBT? Will you restrain your disarmament activities? Will you, fight against China or Pakistan? Did they answer those questions? When they became a nuclear power, became permanent members of Security Council, did we tell them you must behave in such a manner? So we have to think in terms of India's global power status having been achieved centuries ago. But what we need to do is to be contemporize it, in the sense that we are all in the midst of statistics. Statistics, they say that the reverse lie, but statistics can be quoted to prove any point that you want. Every day you hear Kerala is number one in something or the other. Do you ever believe it? Except for alcohol, what are we number one? But I have got a glossy book from the Kerala police, worth thousands of rupees. It says Kerala police is number one in India. Thank God it doesn't say number one in the world. And very glossy pictures of successive DPPs saluting chief ministers. This is true, and obviously they have some statistics to claim this. We were told that we were the third richest country in the world in, which year was that? In 97. And now we have been told you have crossed UK, so you are the fifth largest power. Then what happened to the earlier third largest power? Where did it go? Did we do something? So statistics can play around. The people may say, maybe Mr. Vijayan will say in the assembly that we are the best in waste management in the world. Still you will not laugh. Because you are so used to statistics. He will bring you statistics that so many tons we created, we buried, so many tons of it. So don't trust these statistics. Don't wait for them to come and tell you that you are a great power, you are the this. And now what are they predicting? They are saying we are the fifth, even after we have overtaken UK. And then they say you will now take 20 years to become number 3, which we were in 1971. I have this statistics here. We were told that we were the third largest power at that time. And now we are being told that it will take another 20 years to do that. Indian GDP grew by more than 13% in the first quarter of 2022. What statistics are these? Are you convinced about it? Has anything got better in 2022 after the pandemic came? So you can go. So we were in 2011, we were in the third position. And now after UK has become, they say, so we will overtake Germany in 2027. Then we will overtake Japan in 2029, and then we will become the third largest economy. And then it will go on like that, and in 20 years, we are likely to be the largest economy in the world. So all these are figures which are meant to delude us into thinking that we have to fulfill so many conditionalities to become a global power. And that is what I would like to believe that's happening. And we play into that game because we also are interested in statistics. We say we are the biggest solar power in the world, we are this, that and the other. But do they acknowledge it? Do they accept it? I was going to tell you about the conversation between Talbot and Jefferson. So we used to travel around the world. These two gentlemen could not be in one place at one time, but they were always in different places. So we also traveled to those places, and some of these meetings took place at the airports. So they were crossing Germany airport, so both of them came, then we all went, and then the airport we were in. We had about 36 sessions. So one day after coffee, Mr. Talbot wanted to put just something in his place. Because something was into the kind of line that I have been making. We are a great power and we don't need anybody else's support. So he asked, Mr. Minister, may I ask you a question? This was about coffee. Mr. Singh was quietly drinking his coffee, and then he said, suppose there is a situation where India needs to be defended militarily. Who in the world will come to your defense automatically? Mr. Singh's coffee cup almost dropped. But he had never thought of this. So he was thinking, he was really going to answer. You know what Talbot said? But Mr. Minister, don't tell me Bhutan and Mauritius. Is there a bigger insult than that? So this is where they want you to be. Russians are no better. I'm not criticizing only the United States. What has Russia done to us since it became Russia? After it ceased to be Soviet Union. Because we have a legacy relationship. But they almost withdrew from that relationship at one point. I don't know, there was I don't know what meeting it was in Goa, where the Russians told us that what we were doing in the world is against their interests. What did we do? We take the situation by buying S-400 missiles from Russia. And they were very happy. So they will say you are a great power if you buy their weapons. President Trump did not like India in the beginning. But what did Mr. Narendra Modi go on his first trip? He placed an order for $10 billion of arms. Then he said you are a global power. So this is really the situation we are in. So what we need to do is to go ahead and do what you think is right. We are now saying that we are not non-aligned, we are multi-aligned. But who in the world, which country in the world has said that I am multi-aligned with India? We heard anybody saying that? We say we are multi-aligned. So what does that mean? Is there anybody, so if Talbot asked the question now, who will come to your automatic rescue? We haven't added to the list of you. So India's struggle is not problems of the time. This has been our situation all through. Nobody is willing to give you the responsibilities that you deserve for being in a particular position. When we signed the civilian nuclear agreement, it was supposed to have it equal to signing the NPT without signing the NPT. That was the solution. But have we got anything out of it after the agreement was signed? In 2007, just before the nuclear agreement came into force, a very senior Indian American diplomat who was at the White House told me that, see, we are not going to supply nuclear reactors to you. I was Dr. Pandey, because we are already contracting, apparently we were contracting for 6 nuclear reactors in other countries. So when he said this, I was aghast. I told him that what is all this cooperation we are talking about? He said, look here, we did not sign the nuclear agreement to give you nuclear capacity. Because we don't think that there's nuclear capacity in our interest. Otherwise, he didn't say so. So we have given you the license to go and buy nuclear material from anywhere. But we do not want to be accused of making India a bigger nuclear power. I wrote an article the same day in one of the magazines. And the whole world was shocked. 14 American companies called me and asked, can you tell me who said this? Because they are negotiating supply. I said, no, I cannot tell you who it is. Even today I won't tell you who it is. But that is proved right. 2007 till today, how many reactors have we got? And why haven't we got it? So nobody is interested in making you a global power. Nobody will acknowledge that you are a global power. But they will sometimes say to you that you are a global power in order to restrain you. And so we should think in terms of that. Without this, don't be carried away by the propaganda of the rest of the world. What is the situation today in the world? We do not have a global order. We have only a global disorder. Because the global order ended the day President Trump went to the United Nations General Assembly and said, I don't need you, you don't need me. You finish your work, I will do my American work. He said so. I don't know if you have heard that speech. What does that mean? That is the creator of the United Nations. He is has disowned the United Nations already. In 2003, was it the second Gulf War? President Bush said, oh, you don't want to join us? Don't join us. We'll have the Gulf War again. The second Gulf War, nobody was with them. Only what are they called? Like-minded. So they went to the war. So they went to the war with the United Nations in 1999 2000. Won the war and made a lot of money because all of us contributed to the war. The Americans made money. And then they decided to kill Saddam Hussein. Everybody said, no, that we can't do. There is no more weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They said, no, we'll find it. They couldn't find anything. But Saddam Hussein was killed. And that created instability in Iraq for the rest of their lives. So since it was a UN war, there were some restraints on the Americans, but that restraint did not exist when they started the global war. So the UN is being utilized, or at least was being utilized by the big powers, but they do not always depend on the advice that they get from the UN. That is the problem. And we have always worked as the conscience of mankind in all these issues. Even today, our situation vis-à-vis the Ukraine war is not something new. It is not some neutrality that we found because we are in love with Russia. No. What did we do in Afghanistan? The entire world wanted Russia to leave Afghanistan. But Mrs. Gandhi abstained from the Afghanistan resolution. So there is a certain consistency in our position. And that is not to be affected by any kind of these attractions that they show. So the present situation is that we are all in search of a world order, a new world order. And if you look at every country in the world, there is no country which is happy with its present position. Think of the greatest powers in the world. Are they happy with their present situation? No. Everybody is trying to turn the global order in their direction, in the way they want it. So the other countries are just waiting. What we call soft balancing. Soft balancing. Nobody knows where to go. Are you sure that we will go and align with the Russians? We haven't aligned with the Americans. The Quad is now not an alliance because of India. So we must trust our judgment. We must trust our qualification to be a global power and the fact that we have that kind of influence. But not to be influenced by various attractions and the various conditionalities that the others impose on us. We had a happy dream till the pandemic arrived. That is, there will be a multipolar world. I have written a book called On Diplomacy. And I concluded it by saying that the dream of India and Mr. Modi is to the bilateral world order is over. Bipolar world order is over. There was a unipolar world, and even today it is a unipolar world. There is nobody to challenge US except China. But China's money is all in the United States, so how can they challenge them? If they cannot cash their American bonds, China will go underground. So there is no challenge to the United States. So what exactly will be the new world? Will that multipolar world emerge? K. Subramanian, our foreign minister's father, used to say, he was our guru. He used to say there will be 6 centers of the world, 6 poles in the world. Can you guess? United States, Russia, European Union, China, Japan, and India. And this was kind of a reality soon after 9/11 was a big issue. Then the economic collapse was another issue. All that we were able to manage. But now with the pandemic, which we think is all gone, but we don't know yet, and the Russia-Ukraine war, has completely put the world upside down. India cannot have a pole with Russia, Germany, France, and Italy as I had imagined. There will be a new non-aligned group with India. Major powers, but not global powers. So it was impossible. It was thinkable that India, Russia, even UK and France, Germany would become a pole other than that of US or China. They are not attracted to China. They may not want to be with the US, then why not with India? And that was the dream we had. But that has now been completely shattered because of the Russia-China alignment. So whatever was going in a balanced direction has been upstaged by the Russia-China agreement, the so-called unlimited agreement. Now where do we go? Who is going to be with us? So it doesn't matter. So we must stick to our position, strengthen our defense capability, be friendly with as many countries as possible, but do not bank on them for any emergency that you may face. You have to fight your wars yourself, you have to fight for the world leadership yourself, and that would be the way we should look at our rising power. Because the problems and prospects, I am not going into that. Whether to become a global power, that I am not discussing because we are already a global power. But there will be challenges which we see all the time. Why has this BBC documentary suddenly come up? In fact, Yashankar was asking, something happened in 1984 in India. Where is the BBC documentary on it? You know what happened in 84? The Sikhs were killed on the streets of Delhi. Why is there no BBC documentary? Because then we were not in the race for global power. Now you have to put Mr. Modi down, put India down. And so they produce a BBC. And we are all affected by it. Why can't we say let BBC go to hell? We are not bothered. Our Supreme Court has said this is right. No, we are all very worried. Every intellectual is asking what we do with the BBC. What happened to our democracy? They have reduced it. The level of India has been called half a democracy. So we are not bothered by it. So think about it. I am not giving any conclusion. I just wanted all of you to think the situation in India today and what is likely to be, and in that context what we want to do. And it is right that what we are doing is we are defying most of these. But at the same time we should not be so combative. In diplomacy you always have to be, you can't be the wolf diplomacy as the Chinese are saying. They have themselves reduced it. And so we need to work with everybody, continue with our traditional friends, continue to deal with everyone, but do not be constrained by the conditions imposed on you to become a support group. I'll stop there, and if you have any questions, I can answer in a few minutes. Thank you.
That is still, I think, 74. But the technology has been here.